Welcome back, venturers. It's time for another discussion about VNs. I am MR, and together with Taurus, we have been reunited by the red string of fate. We had promised long ago to meet and make this topic, and gosh darn it, we will. So it happens. The vow we've made to each other that fateful day fulfills now. It's time to discuss childhood friends' character archetype in VNs.
Yes, we've talked before about a few classic anime kinds of archetypical heroines and how they show up in visual novels. However, we have not yet mentioned childhood friends, which seems to be a staple in any sort of romance visual novel involving multiple heroines. One or multiple will usually have some sort of history with the main character, of growing up together, many years of hanging out, having fun, and getting to trust one another. And so, the childhood friend is a pretty familiar archetype of character that a lot of readers will recognize. So, MR, what are your initial thoughts of what makes a childhood friend?
Well, it has to be defined with some sort of connection to protagonist that extends past what you see and what's developed on screen when you read. So obviously I started with a dramatic intro because a lot, but I don't think all of them, but not insignificant amount of them has some sort of a bonding moment, greater or lesser in the past, that tied them together, be it some, let's say, common interest, or maybe they were the only ones to play with. Maybe they had been forlorn or lonely and found each other. Something that bound them together. Maybe they made a promise and that got separated again. Maybe not. It all depends. There's all kind of varieties that we'll bring to discuss probably today.
As for me, I think I'd back it up into something less, grandiose like that. I just say it's two characters who spent time together many years ago when they were children. Honestly, I think it's just as simple as that. Naturally a few things follow from that, that they were friends, of course, that they would regularly see each other, and that they were happy to spend time with each other. But one of the interesting questions that follows through is that there's two different establishing relationship aspects, I think you could say. One of which is when the two characters have stayed connected throughout all the years. And now here we are in high school or as young adults or whatever, and they are still friends to this day. Or the other aspect is that for whatever reason, they've been separated. Sure, they were childhood friends long ago, but then they've gone their separate ways. One of them moved away or something, and suddenly here we are in the opening of this visual novel where the two of them suddenly reunite. So, I mean, there's two different variations of how you can set that up. The idea of a childhood friend getting involved in the basic premise of this visual novel, yeah?
I want to clarify one more thing with your definitions. When it comes about the separation, or to some degree, I want to use the word falling off, but the distance that being created between two characters, it doesn't have to be necessarily physical distance. As with one of the examples you brought forward of our favorite criminal border, right?
An emotional separation.
Exactly. Some sort of distance being created.
Okay, like as you mentioned with Criminal Border, you've got our main character, Itsuki, and his next door neighbor, Rin. And they used to get along happily and they used to play together. But now the situation is different. Our main character is kind of a dweeb and in otaku in the derogatory sense of the word. And Rin has much more of a cold shoulder against him. Even though the childhood
situation
friends
for some time now, right?
Yeah, and that's how it's been. But still, they used to be childhood friends. They know each other, although their relationship is very different than what you would expect. I mean, if you want to look at a very typical childhood childhood friendship sort of thing, I mean, you've got Love. That's a great example, right? Between all of
Absolutely
the
amazing.
silly antics that Sumika and the main character get into. Yamato. All of the physical comedy, all of them intentionally pissing each other off.
I mean, when it comes to the friendship aspect of that word from the childhood friend, this one just immediately showcases how close they are since forever. They feel so comfortable with each other to make jokes, poke fun of, and give each other real minky punches if someone steps out of line, right?
Getting blasted off into the moon.
Yeah, to the smearing. And it works both ways. It was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, all the ways that he flicks her on the forehead and she goes...
Yep. Exactly.
It's definitely a very fun relationship between the two. And honestly, I think it's perfect for a title like Love Extra. To fit their kind of absurd comedy all throughout the VN is that you have, the main character, and arguably the main heroine, and just all the silly ways and the antics that they interact together.
Yeah, it's just reading the interaction between all three of them was just amazing example of a childhood friend, because Takeru, Sumika, and Sumika's Ahoga.
Mm-hmm. Now, another very obvious portrayal of childhood friends, though, is in the whole romance aspect. You have the introduction and the common route, but then when we get into the character routes, that's when the characters realize that this childhood friendship that they have is bloomed into romance, and then we follow that whole story of the relationship developing. I mean, for visual novels that are romance-focused, they usually offer multiple heroines, and when you have an archetype such as childhood friends, well, we get a lot of players who are pretty familiar with that idea of an archetypical character, right?
I agree, and there is a reason why such archetypes exist and they work, because as the saying goes, the way forward to men's love is through stomach. So Sumika throws Milky Drill Punch straight into stomach into love, right? Is that how it works?
Not quite.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, because once it crosses that step into the threshold into romance, it's based on familiarity. They know each other, they know what each other things are, how they behave, what they like, what they don't. It's an interesting dynamic to see shape into something more.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to mention that one huge aspect of the relationship between the main character and a childhood friend is familiarity. Oftentimes with other heroines and potential love interests, they're meeting together for the first time. Just like how they're being introduced to the main character, they're being introduced to the player as well, and you kind of self-insert a little there throughout that getting to know each other process. But with a childhood friend, there's so much history behind it. They have predetermined opinions of each other. They have that knowledge of their likes and dislikes. They know how they've acted before in the past and how it's led to who they are in the future. And so when a visual novel wants to go in that direction of a romance with the childhood friend kind of character, it allows for more depth than you would expect, just, starting off as a basis with other kinds of heroines. And so I think that that familiarity aspect really adds a wrinkle into how the stories involved for their character routes develop.
Yeah, and honestly, this influence, this head start has to be studied, because to me it's fascinating how often those childhood friends have this home field advantage and they still lose the main heroine. That's interesting.
Why? Do you think it's a regular thing that they lose?
Yeah, I think oftentimes the main heroine that gets special treatment tends not to be the childhood friend one. I mean, Sumika being big exception for the rule, I get that. She's one of the, if not the most main heroine. But more often than not, I feel like they are rarely the main titular girl of a given title.
I think they can be. Like with Criminal Border, arguably Rin is the most, main girl out of all of them. Well, that actually gets a little more complicated. Okay, maybe that's not the best
Yeah,
idea.
I would not give you that one.
Okay.
But okay, sure.
Majikoi, that's a little funky because you can go in all sorts of different directions, and many of them are childhood friends. In fact, they're almost all of them are childhood friends because they're a whole bunch of goofy goobers.
Okay. I mean, that's one way of winning the race. You just flood the market with childhood friends so you cannot lose.
Well, there's Doki Doki Literature Club, a very famous VN for many sorts of people, and Sayori,
yes,
very much a childhood friend. Although, I guess, I think I'm only supporting your argument that the childhood friend is the most normal and starting off one, but does not win by the end. I think I'm actually only helping you, buddy. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Regardless, another big aspect that I think there exists in childhood friend romances is that idea of trust or loyalty. Mm-hmm. Because there's been years of getting to know each other, and so along with that familiarity, I think there's also that element of both sides trusting each other far more than what you would expect out of diving into a regular romance with finding someone new. I think
that's a good one, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's an element that you see in any sorts of relationship, even when it goes into non-romantic aspects. Like even if it's just something like Tsukihime, when you have, your main character and then you got Arihiko as your cool best friend buddy who you've known forever. Again, there's still that element of trust and loyalty involved. He's your best bro. You would never, distrust him no matter what happened. They're sticking together through thick and thin, and it's because you have all of those years as setup, as proof of that bond. I think that proof is another huge element for any sort of childhood friend character.
Absolutely.
So what can you tell me? I'm thinking that you've got some screenshots here from Baldur Sky, right?
Man, yeah. This character, Nanoha, checks all the boxes for an amazing childhood friend, although with a relationship that is different from what you described, because it is to some degree estranged, I think this is the word. It's a childhood friend of the main protagonist who gets reunited with him after a long time of separation. And more than that, due to the fact the protagonist has severe amnesia, he doesn't have the same level of familiarity to her that she has to him, which creates an interesting disbalance at start until the protagonist tries to recollect and understand the depth to which she cares for him and consequently he for her, even though he forgot that part. Like that is so interesting to read and see untangle over the course of the story.
Amnesia angle. So now it's like, okay, one side has all of the childhood friendship, that strength, that trust, that familiarity, but the other side doesn't because of,
exactly.
Plot reasons, of course.
Yeah, her relationship to him is childhood friend completed, and his relationship with her is childhood friend still pending.
Still pending. Oh no.
Still rebuilding that. Like, okay, that's super unique.
I mean, yeah, but they're on two totally different wavelengths, though.
I don't want to focus too much on that point. They start that way over the course of the story that is focused about regaining memory that won't last, that there will be something, for whatever reason, he keeps regaining memories. So you see that develops both as a regaining memories as well as recontextualization of things that happens in the moment now that he gets those memories, and his appreciation for her being with him through those times. Those are great moments. In addition to that, she is, unlike a lot of childhood friends, very story relevant. Whereas oftentimes when it comes to stories that have some sort of sci-fi, mystery, fantasy angle, childhood friends tend to not be as story relevant as other unknown forces which protagonist meets over the course of the story, which makes sense if you think about it. If you have a story beat that is less romance-focused and less of a real-life scenario and mixes more of a world, something that is a threat or something like that, so a plot that is bigger than characters, then those closest to protagonists tend to be uninvolved.
Uninvolved with the protagonist or uninvolved with the plot?
No, uninvolved with the plot. And I'm saying the closest that he starts with, right? And he gets involved with more plot relevant. I'm just trying to not get into spoilers of things I have in mind for that kind of an example. And she, contrary to that, is very story relevant. She is someone who was close to him since childhood, through all those years ago, as well as now she's very much involved with what is happening, which adds a very interesting dimension. And she's green, so she is amazing.
Green. Give it up for the green hair girls, yeah.
How often do you see greenies win, right? So there has to be some appreciation for greenies. Childhood greenie, see?
Very true. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And one of her chapter is called S, so it has everything.
Yeah, whatever you say. But still, I think whenever I think of childhood friends, like my most archetypical, the like baseline, actually goes to a TOEFL boyfriend. I'm sure a lot of you just know it as that pigeon dating simulator one, and it's like, okay, yes, but it's actually really good beyond that. But still, it's in what seems like the most main character of them is that you, a human girl as the main character, go to this all pigeon school, and you have your best friend Rota, who is a male pigeon who is working hard and is best friends with you and is trying to support and be there for you as well. And still, I think Ryota is the closest to being like the most main, or the most cover of the VN kind of character. And he just exemplifies a lot of the things that I mentioned, just that quiet trust and loyalty in the main character, just your sole friend at the beginning. And even though there's a lot of excitement of meeting a bunch of new characters and seeing all sorts of new opportunities for romance options and all of that, he's still the one who's by you by the start. And that kind of trust involved, really lends the strongest credulence to, he's my first guess for childhood friends. He's my first thought, the default of it.
Speaking of defaults, isn't he also a pigeon? The most default of city birds?
Yes, I mean, they're all pigeons in a sense, but he's also the I'm pretty sure he's a rock dove, the most normal pigeon, the one that you're probably thinking of now.
Exactly. So he checks all the boxes, and honestly, that's such a good example. He bonded with the main protagonist over the fact that they know each other for many years. Now he's trying to help her mingle into the school full of other pigeons. I don't know, from their shared experience of picking up bread from the street before, I don't guess.
Okay, see, so, what are you saying, Amar?
He's just such a interesting character, and a unique twist on childhood friend.
I suppose if you want to get into that kind
By
of
the way,
territory.
I'm obviously joking with that picking up bread, but then again, the protagonist lives in a cave, and it's established very early that she's defined by one major characteristic, right, of hers. She's really, really stupid.
Mean. Okay. That's uncalled for. Mm-hmm.
Hey,
And
I'm just saying what Devian established, okay?
Yeah. And what about your other, example going through our gallery and the screenshots? I don't recognize that VN, so you'll have to fill me in.
Yeah. I have the one that I left is the least recognizable, and I didn't found.
Is the what?
It's picture with the text, so it's the grayed out picture from the past of a promise long ago. It's from the Princess X.
The Princess
She's
X.
She's called Nishi Mayuko and represents on the topic of winners and losers. She represents pretty much a bad ending. She's your childhood friend Yandere in that game. So if you don't end up with anybody else, she instead will pick you, and you will have a bad time, let's say. It's interesting because I don't think I've ever read any other title that had a childhood friend Yandere heroine.
Wow, okay. Childhood friend Yandere. Usually the whole premise of a Yandere is that you're one bad day away from kicking the bucket.
Yeah, and on the surface and throughout the whole adventure, when you read the title, she exhibits very tsundere behavior. But underneath that, she's extremely jealous. And you better pick someone else and elope or else. Dun, dun, dun.
This doesn't sound very appealing.
Yeah, so
oh my gosh.
That kind of represents that childhood friend trope in which you think you know her well enough, but maybe you actually don't. So like slight air of mystery around her.
Well, okay, interesting.
Listen, and I am tempted now to pass the ball to you, ask you about your heroine picks, but I know you cute Magicoi. So can you please at least familiarize us with your picks in such a way that doesn't take over the entire episode?
I'm sorry, you're asking me for my favorite childhood friend character?
Yes.
Okay, you just jumped straight to Magicoi and assumed that, but you'd be wrong, buddy.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
dang.
right. I demand an apology.
Criminal border.
No, get out of here.
Okay, sorry.
Rather, I think one of my... Now, this gets some favoritism out of me because it was one of the first titles I read, so of course, we've all got nostalgia for our first visual novels that got us into this whole sphere. But still, I have to give a shout out to Akane from 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors. The premise of it is that our main character is a regular dude who suddenly finds himself kidnapped. He's locked onto a sinking ship. He's got bombs in his stomach, and he needs to solve puzzles with these 8 other strangers who've also been kidnapped on the ship if he wants to have any shot of keeping his life alive. One of the people kidnapped on the ship is Akane, who is his childhood friend from many years ago, back in school. But they've been separated, they haven't seen each other for a while, but wow, would you look at that? It's a small world, huh? How they just get kidnapped together and their lives are at stake. Isn't that crazy? But still, I really liked her. She was a unique character in the cast for how caring and how nice she was in these life or death situations. But more than that, she was the only one who had any sort of history with our main character. Everyone else is a stranger, of course, like I mentioned, so having this unique aspect of getting to be familiar with someone and to explore the past and to really connect right off the bat. that really helped a lot for the story, and I really enjoyed her as well.
I definitely did not expect your example to go in the direction of people kidnapped together, bond together. And by the way, she's childhood friend.
It's not by the way, it's an important part.
And it comes from the series in which you're biased for. Because if I understand correctly, 999 is the series that has Tauros in it, right?
No, that would be its sequel.
Oh,
Virtue's Last Reward has Luna, not 999.
okay.
You're trying your hardest, though. I respect that. What about you, MR? What have you got to say about your favorite childhood friend?
It is very close between Sumika and Nanoha. Because you know what? I think I slightly give it to Nanoha, but both of them play in the most typical childhood friend that have deep connection with the protagonist, and it blossoms over the course of the stories to something more in both of their stories. And in both of the stories as well, they are very relevant to the plot. It's not like a side plot of instead of fighting for whatever main plot there is, I decided to stick to my hometown and pick the home girl. No, it's a character that has been in protagonist's life since forever, and she's still relevant to what is happening right now. And at the same time, they bond to something deeper. And it's very hard for me to pick one, but I may slightly give it to Nana, or a small margin.
Mm-hmm.
But it can go both ways.
Nice. So you're a two-timer.
Oh my god, the way you said,
How dare you? You should commit.
Okay, I teased you in this episode too much. Oh my god, that was tough. Wow, thank you.
As for me, as far as character archetypes go, I very much enjoy the childhood friend aspects. For me, I like that history. I like going with what's familiar and comfortable. And right off the bat, when you have a childhood friend character, it leans more into that direction instead of the rest of a typical moege, where you have these other heroines as romance options, and they're all new and they have their own characters. That's all fine and all, but personally, you already get starting points for being a childhood friend, so I think I'd have to rate them pretty highly. But compared to all sorts of other heroine archetypes, where do childhood friends rank on the list for you, MR?
Oh, damn, that's a blast from the past, because I don't think my opinion changed ever since that day. That sometimes I see my nightmares. I mean, the tier list when we did with August Hale. You guys were way more prepared than me, okay? You had some choice words. I still rate them very high, childhood friends. They have no candle to Kuder's, obviously, of course. But they are still high, very high.
Oh, nice.
A-tier material.
Yes, agreed. All right. Any closing thoughts about this childhood friends kinds of characters and visual novels?
Honestly, I have more interesting examples. I think you can do a lot. The one unspoilerific example, which is hilarious, is from a title that I hold very dear, is Amatsutsumi, which begins with the protagonist having a childhood friend, fiancé. Can you imagine? It's a fiancé, childhood friend, knows protagonist since forever, and she still loses. Oof. How can you fumble that? Fumble. You had all the advantage.
Oh, that's
you had all the field advantage. You were winning until you lost. That is so funny to me.
You think it's funny?
Yeah.
Oh no.
That's hilarious. Although I might have thought differently if I actually liked that character. So it's good riddance.
Ouch. Not kind, huh?
Hey, what can I say?
You could say, I'm sorry. That was so cruel of me. How could I? I'll never do it again.
Instead, I choose the words "see you later, alligator."
Well, that's a good stopping point for our episode anyway. Thank you all very much for listening. I hope you all enjoyed. And obviously, let us know in the comments what you feel about childhood friend characters.
I am excited to see what you guys wrote. And all that. Now, thanks for all our listeners for listening in. VNture out.
VNture out.